and is able to just digest any board in front of her and is really just an excellent strategist. So no surprise to see her here once again, going up against Caleb, and it's a bit of a tricky matchup, Ethan.
Caleb's got to put in some work a little bit. Of course, that water ogre pond, water mask ogre pond, it's a big part of the strategy. You know, no bench damage protection in the format. Manaphy is no longer here. Shaman on the horizon, but for now, there is no protection. Caleb, with his 4th top cut this season, looking to break through the top 4. You see this here, 2 top 4 placements. He went across the border to Mexico, up the border in Vancouver, and maybe it's going to be here, finally in the US, where he's able to bring home a championship.
Yeah, and we got a fun fact. Apparently, Piper copied one of my deck lists back in 2015 and won a regional with it. So, wow, that's 10 years ago at this point. So, Piper's been winning regionals for at least a decade, and she's on her path again. She can take down Caleb in this top 8, one step closer to another regional championship. And I'm just excited to see this one. It's 2 great players. Should be a fun back and forth matchup. What more could you ask for?
This is going to be awesome. And both of these players, like you mentioned, they dominated in their early years in the Pokemon TCG. Piper, multi-time regional champion in seniors. Caleb was an international champion when we resumed play in 2022 at EUIC, and have just continued their momentum into the Pokemon Trading Card Game's highest age division, Masters Division. Looks like a mulligan on Piper's side. We'll wait to see both these players put their prizes out. The big decisive thing here is going to be, you know, who gets to start action off and what these players decide to do based off of the cards they have available in their prizes. And that's a big hit here for Caleb. Both copies of that boss's orders in the prizes.
Yeah, that could be pretty impactful. We'll see. One of them is on the bottom, so if you take them kind of in that order, that's one he could get access to pretty early. But yeah, having 0 boss's orders at the start of the game could impact some decision making. Nothing too impactful on Piper's side. We're going to have a great match here. I cannot wait to see who's going to come out on top in this one. It's the top 8, Ethan. There's just 3 rounds left in this tournament. Once you get to this point, I mean, what are you feeling? What's going through your head?
A lot of nerves. You're playing a $2,000 money match, that's for starter. You've got a lot on the line. And, you know, I think for both of these players, it's just adding to their resume. They're so close. Piper trying to become a 3-time regional champion. Caleb was close in 2024, 2nd place, top 4, top 8, but he is missing that winner championship playmat trophy and all the glory. And we'll kick things off with probably the best way you can, Nest Ball. And this is where the floodgates start open, because once you get the fan rotom, once you start to get that, all the dominoes start to fall in place.
Yeah, and I think your ideal starter in this matchup too, right? The Wellspring Mask, Ogerpon EX, that is one of your main attackers at the start of the game with the Torrential Pump. If you're able to target down multiple Ralts at once, knock them both out. Of course, we do know Caleb won't have access to boss's orders, so may not be able to get that double knockout with that first attack, but still, the Torrential Pump really threatening. And then one thing we see a lot of is actually Sob. Prevents your opponent's active Pokemon from retreating, and the Pheasantipity EX is an awkward one that can get stuck. So right off the bat, we have some interesting wrinkles in this game.
Will be the Fan Rotom as the selection from Nest Ball. Caleb doing what all great players do, checking through the deck, making sure he understands what pieces are at his disposal. And there is a flock of birds coming into play. 3 Hoot Hoot, getting ready to evolve into that powerful Noctowl. It is essentially, you know, the backbone engine of this Tera box deck.
And you cannot love to see this. First thing Caleb does is just put down an energy with the Sparkling Crystal, kind of saying, hey, next turn I'm going to be attacking with this thing. And if you're in Piper's position, you got to think, I got to get down a bunch of Ralts. If I can get 3 down, I think that's ideal. But yeah, you're just kind of hoping for the best here. You have to weather the storm in the beginning of this game. Of course, one of those Ralts is prized. Prize cards potentially hurting both players at the beginning of this, but really the main hurdle, Ethan, I think is once you get Gardevoird out, things kind of fall in place, but it's can you actually get to Gardevoird EX before all your little Ralts in Kirlia get knocked out?
This, you know, Tera box deck is one of the scariest decks in the early game to deal with. It's exactly like you said, weathering the storm. You got to make sure your Ralts are protected, and once they become Gardevoird EX, that 310 HP is a perfect number because it plays right outside of that Pikachu EX, which is another big factor this deck has going for it. It's an awkward Pokemon, but when you get it attacked and powered up, it's really hard to stop a Pikachu EX.
Absolutely. Piper doing a prize check of her own here, and we do see the Badoo kind of at the front there. Could be a potential option here if your opponent, has like just an Ultra Ball as their only way to find the Noctowl. That could be a way to kind of slow down this early game. And looks like Badoo was the choice. We'll see. And yeah, it's just all about the early game setup. Really with Gardevoird, a lot of the matchups is, can I set up Gardevoird EX quickly enough, get the energy into the discard pile, and start stringing together these big attacks? Because it can be vulnerable early on in the game, especially after the rotation. You don't have those refinement Curlia to help you kind of smooth out your draws in the early turns.
Earthen Vessel getting rid of Night Stretcher. We saw a pair of those Bravery Charm. You think Piper's really valuing that card? Is that a card you think maybe a lot of Gardevoird players normally would be quick to discard, but could be impactful in a matchup like this?
Yeah, you can put a Bravery Charm on a Ralts, right? That could help it withstand the Torrential Pump. Gives you time to then rare candy into Gardevoird on the next turn. Funnily enough, I mean, if you have the Bravery Charm, you get hit for 100, then you evolve to Curlia, you just get knocked out.
Yeah.
So don't want to do that. But yeah, those Bravery Charm can be big on the Ralts, but also helping your Screamtail, things like that, get enough HP so that they can do big damage and knock out Pokemon EX and take multiple prize cards at once.
Iona will be the supporter of choice for Piper. Ideally with this version, really looking to use that Arven paired with the Technical Machine Evolution. We'll draw to 6 cards. Not a bad 6 at that. There is a Monkey Dory. Energy already been committed for the turn, as well as an Ultra Ball. And I feel like that's got to be, thought number one is I cannot feel comfortable with just a single Ralts down in play, especially when there are 3 Hoothoots in play and that Tera Ogerpon already powered up.
Yeah. You just need 1 energy, and you could use the Torrential Pump to knock out the Ralts. Let's see, a second Ralts does come onto the bench. This is really a terrifying position if you're Piper. You could lose both of those on the next turn. Like you mentioned before, Ethan, there's no kind of bench barrier, no more Manaphy. Shaman is maybe on the horizon, but for now, those Ralts are vulnerable on the bench. So this is kind of a nerve-wracking situation, and also, I mean, even if you just leave the Pheasantipity there, it's annoying if you just get, sobbed for a little bit. I don't think that's what Caleb will want to do right here, but yeah, Piper was able to get a couple Ralts down, set herself up to potentially have a big turn too, but yeah, it's really nerve-wracking. You don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, the only saving grace for Piper at this point, like it was just pointed out, 2 Boss's Orders prized. Means there's no way for Caleb to take a 2-prize turn right here. He's got to just decide, what he wants to approach. Is he okay taking out one of these Ralts? But then you activate the Pheasantipity, so maybe Caleb is going to have to cook up something a little bit different because of, the underlying circumstances of not having easy access to gusting cards.
Yeah, and I think Piper was probably breathing in a sigh of relief seeing, oh, Crispin is the supporter for the turn. That means there's no Boss's Orders. That means I'm going to have a Ralts in play for the next turn, and yeah, that's great. We do see the Crispin, 1 energy going into the hand, 1 going on to the Wellspring Mask Ogerpon EX. And yeah, Ethan, like you're saying, I mean, you can just knock out 1 Ralts, but then you give your opponent access to flip the script. It's a tricky situation to be in.
Looks like we're just going to see, okay, a little bit of both worlds then. You're not forced to shuffle those energy back in. What do you think about this, Kyle? Just hitting for 100 and maybe setting up for some plays later on?
I think that's a really, really intelligent play. Your opponent just had 2 cards in hand. You don't know what those are, right? There could be a supporter, sure, like a Professor's Research, but if it's just something like this Arven, the turn is going to be really limited. Right? You can just search for an item and a Pokemon tool. You can maybe rare candy into Gardevoird, but then what's left after that? You don't have another supporter you can play for the turn. You're really low on cards, so I think this was Caleb identifying a weakness in Piper's board position here and saying, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. There's no point in taking a single prize knockout here when I can put some relevant damage on this Pokemon EX and prevent you from using Flip the Script.
Artisan coming into play, first stadium of this series, will help both players out, but for now, Piper using that to grab Badoo. So this could be, a little bit of both worlds, but that 100 damage onto Pheasantipity is just providing so much of a threat now because, yes, you can come in, But this is why Piper saved those Bravery Charm, putting in a lot of work now, buffing up that Pheasantipede and putting it out of range of Torrential Pump.
Yeah, but now Piper has 0 cards in her hand. This is, again, a really vulnerable situation. I mean, you could see if Caleb had Boss's Orders, this would be a huge situation to Boss's Orders up the Pheasantipede EX or something like that. We do see that there is a potential for something like a Jamming Tower to come in. It's a key card against these Gardevoird decks, and that could be key to knock out that Pheasantipede EX. I mean, you can imagine if you can knock that out, Piper has 0 cards in hand. What does she do from there?
Yeah, not a lot here going on in the hand for Caleb. You do have to wonder, if this Water Energy gets committed something else, then that Jamming Tower play is actually not an option because it would shut off your own Sparkling Crystals. So
True.
There's a little bit of, back and forth, but Caleb is deciding to just, hold on to this Nest Ball, is maybe kind of afraid of, what happens in the worst case. I just kind of want to have a way to maybe grab Pheasantipede. A little bit of hesitation, but, things aren't terrible here for Caleb. Looks like he's going to commit to this Torrential Pump, still take the first 2 prizes, but now Piper guaranteed get the top of the deck of the card, and then also 3 cards off this Flip the Script.
Yeah, deciding that the 2 prize cards were worth it instead of just the 1. And there's the Flip the Script. Does Piper find any supporter card?
It looks like a Professor's Research. That's big.
All right. Yeah, you can see if there wasn't a knockout taken, just the draw for the turn, it was nothing, right? There would not have been really anything done on this turn, but now that the knockout happened, Flip the Script can be used with the Pheasantipede EX to draw 3 cards, and really this is going to jumpstart Piper's turn here, and we'll see what she can pull off now.
Yeah, and an interesting, priority. We're going to see Professor's Research discard the hand. There's actually only 1 Psychic Energy in the bin, so it looks like just prioritizing getting guaranteed Adrenabrain this turn, and is going to have to find some way to discard this last Psychic Energy if there wants to be a Miracle Force KO. We'll double check the bin to see if there are enough. It looks like there's only 2, however.
Yeah, that's not it. And I don't know if there's any way in Piper's hand to discard another Psychic Energy. This could be a bit of an awkward turn. Yeah, really valuing the Adrenabrain, of course. We've been seeing this card for a long time now, the Monkey Dory. You get to move up to 3 damage counters from one of your Pokemon onto one of your opponent's Pokemon. It helps you fix the math for a lot of different attacks, resulting in knockouts. It can set up really tricky plays. It works beautifully with the damage you have to put on your own Pokemon with Gardevoird EX's Psychic Embrace ability, and it's like this card was made for this deck almost.
A match made in heaven indeed. Monkey Dory fitting in perfectly with Gardevoird. We'll see, interested to see what the option is. And speaking, Monkey Dory already a broken card, but they gave it also such a valuable attack. Guaranteed Confusion is going to just put pressure onto this onto this Wellspring Mask Ogerpon. And this is a big thing. A lot of decks can play around Confusion, but Caleb's not really playing any way to switch his active out besides the Latias. And with that being the case, it means if you want to try and use Torrential Pump this turn, you got to flip for it.
Yeah, it puts you in a really awkward position. It really doesn't seem like much with the Mind Bend, right? It's just 60 damage. But yeah, when your Pokemon's confused, it puts you in a really weird spot. Sometimes you have to decide, do I go for the attack? If it's Tails, that's 3 more damage counters on my Pokemon, and I just missed my attack for the turn. So it can be the one turn you need to just buy time and get yourself back in the game. Gardevoird is a deck that's all about just time, right? If you can buy yourself enough time to get to your kind of ultimate board state, it's really difficult to beat. Most decks just can't keep up with it. If we started the game where Gardevoird just had access to everything, it would probably beat just about every deck. But yeah, that's why this Monkey Dory sometimes, we see a lot of Mind Bends.
Yeah.
Way more than I thought we ever would. But yeah, it's just so annoying to deal with.
So first Jewel Seeker, I feel like we've seen in a while. Me and Sable House had a game that had no Jewel Seeker, so this is more than welcome sight to my eyes. Such a powerful ability. Pairs perfectly with this deck surrounding so many different Tera Pokemon. And search out any 2 trainer cards from the deck, and it looks like just really valuing ways to just search more Pokemon out. Nest Ball plus Ultra Ball. You can kind of combo together these really powerful turns, and it's really going to come down to, Caleb's imagination and what his vision is for this final attack to end his turn off.
Yeah, and one of the awkward things is he doesn't have a particularly great attack this turn. Right, with the Ogerpon being confused, you don't really want to commit too heavily to using like a Crispin on it or any resources to kind of go for a big attack that might just fail. There's no Pokemon on the board right now that could be knocked out by like the Fan Rotom. Sometimes that's an easy one. You can just boss's orders up a Ralts, something like that, get an easy prize card. And there's not a lot that just does like 110 damage to the Monkey Dory. You typically need an attacker that takes like 2 energy, and it's typically requiring like a Pokemon EX as well. So this Monkey Dory just presents so many headaches for your opponent.
So all these searching cards hitting the board at once. Gonna see the bench fill up here. Terapagos EX coming down. Latias EX on the bench. And Caleb did find one of those 2 bosses orders off the bottom 2 prize cards and did also find Energy Switch. So this could maybe be an opportunity where that newly grabbed Terapagos EX can come in and maybe Unify beat down that Fezandipity that already took a little bit of damage early on.
You're absolutely right, Ethan. And that Bravery Charm will not save the Fezandipity EX this time. Terapagos EX going to get powered up here. And yeah, with the Latias EX giving all your basic Pokemon have no retreat cost, allows you to freely move between them. Yeah, this is going to be a huge swing in the game. Caleb going to go down to 2 prize cards. Now, there is still a huge hurdle ahead of that Gardevoird EX to get through, but this is what you got to do. Try to pick up these prize cards where you can.
Yeah, and a huge threat now with Caleb being at just 2 prizes. How safe does Piper ever feel to put Fezandipity on the bench again? It feels like you'd have to commit another Bravery Charm, and that's just a resource that you're usually using offensively, having to be committed in a defensive way so that you can, get that extra draw power that this deck is lacking now that Refinement Curlia no longer an option.
So do you see another Darkness Energy come down onto the second Monkey Dory? This is where you really feel powerful as a Gardevoird player. You get twice the Adrenabrain every turn, so you can move 6 damage counters and really start to set up some really nifty plays. Looks like there's a Scream Tail as well that could come down with the Bravery Charm. See how much Piper's willing to commit here. And once again, Ethan, there's not a lot of Psychic Energy in the discard pile currently. We'll see what kind of attack Piper's able to pull off.
There are those Psychic Energy you mentioned, but again, does not find anything like Earthen Vessel or Ultra Ball, just a handful of supporters, and it makes you wonder, what the option is, and we're going to be seeing some more Mind Bend action. Monkey Dory is getting a full workout here in this first game.
How much can one Mind Bend? We see another just 60 damage attack, and the Terapagos EX is confused. Again, there is the Latias EX in play that can retreat. But if you're Caleb, what are you using to knock out the Monkey Dory? The Terapagos is the thing you have right now that can do enough damage. Do you want to go for it? Is there some option that he has to pull off a knockout here? It seems pretty unlikely that he would be able to win. I don't think there's really anything in his deck that would allow him to win this turn. But how do you get yourself one step closer to winning?
Did draw into that Professor Turo scenario, so at minimum, that could guarantee another use out of something like the Noctowl.
Yeah, and you can retreat, Turo up your active Pokemon, and effectively get rid of the confusion.
Yeah, and also get an extra Jewel Seeker ability to guaranteed use next turn, essentially putting pressure on Piper to play this Iono, because there's guaranteed resources that can be found, especially with 2 Hoot Hoot in play, means you can't just target 1 and expect Jewel Seeker to be offline. So heads up thinking here from Caleb, that Latias EX allowing everything to move in and out and allow him to exceed everything he needs and create a smooth, solid game plan.
Yeah, this is a terrifying spot for Piper. Opponent going down to just a single prize card. You have not taken any knockouts in this entire game. All it would take at that point, is knocking out one more Monkey Dory and they would be it. So this would be, the most heroic of comebacks, right? Down 6-1 in prize cards for Piper. She's not giving up quite yet, but it's a long road ahead.
Yeah, and a tough spot, too, because if you leave the Monkey Dory on the bench, then it gets KO'd by the bench damage from the Water Ogerpon. Yep. But if you leave it in the active spot, then there's way more Pokemon that can take a knockout on it, too. So looks like the doors are closing. It's going to have to play Arven as the card for turn, but now Caleb is just sitting on a guaranteed Jewel Seeker for next turn, and with that at his disposal, I don't know if there's really a world where Piper can prevent a, Wellspring Mask Ogerpon from taking a knockout unless there's something like the Bravery Charm, so just using these charms defensively to try and just protect everything that's needed.
And I think Piper probably knows this is not going to go well, but it will give her some information. If Caleb has... Well, even the jamming tower isn't great here, right? Because you don't have an easy way to fully power up the Wellspring Mask Ogerpon if your Sparkling Crystal isn't working. So maybe this Bravery Charm is the thing that helps Piper stay in the game. We'll see what happens.
Big question, that one card, the Pikachu EX. Could Caleb power that up? There is the exact 1 damage counter on the Gardevoird, and there's already the grass energy on that Noctowl. If there's that energy switch in Crispin, as well as a way to find Pikachu, those could be all the pieces. It looks like Caleb is playing fast. He's going to check through the deck. There is the Crispin, Metal and Lightning in the deck. If he has either the Nest Ball, the Crispin itself, or an energy switch, he can find all those pieces. And this even does an extra shortcut. You can essentially use 2 Jewel Seeker abilities and get +3 trainer cards out of your deck.
Yeah, looks like Caleb has figured out exactly what to do here. Like you said, Ethan, the Pikachu EX comes down, Crispin, energy switch, and Pikachu EX with a Topaz Bolt coming in for 300 damage to clean up that Gardevoird EX. Sometimes just 10 damage is all the difference in these games. You think Pokemon have 310 HP now? What difference is 10 gonna make? Well, you just found out. That's a game difference right there.
25 years ago, 10 damage mattered maybe just as much as it mattered now. A little bit more, I'm sure, but 10 damage is still 10 damage. Nothing seemed to go right for Piper in that game, That first turn, excuse me, had to really work for that, right? A slower start, it seemed like there was at least some defensive options, the Rare Candy Gardevoird, the Bravery Charm to protect against the Pheasantipity. But Caleb making really good use of that Terapagos EX, a card that's not an auto-inclusion in this list, but really showcasing how strong it can be in this Terapagos deck.
Yeah, we saw Caleb just kind of put on pressure and had ways to pull off attacks pretty much every turn, really put the pressure on Piper, and that's what you got to do against Gardevoird sometimes. Just make your opponent have the answer. If they can respond with everything, that's great, but if they stumble a bit, that's the opening you need to close out these games. And I feel like this Tera box deck, it's about finding ways to close out the game. You can get the early prizes pretty easily, but it's how do you get the last knockouts, and Caleb figured it out beautifully in that first game. We are moving on.
Yep.
Oh, looks like we do have an update from the field. Ethan, what's going on out there?
Let's see. It looks like Christian Fontenot, first person to advance into the top 4, taking down Owen Dalgard, playing that EV box. So Raging Bolt EX, one of our first top 4 contenders. If he's one of our 4, I know we're going to have a great top cut, and it's going to include one of these 2 players. Does Piper will opt to go first? You see this deck opting to go second a lot of the time, wants to use, that Technical Machine Evolution in combination with Arven. Could this really just be Piper saying, hey, I saw how strong your deck was when you went first. I don't want you to have that privilege.
Yeah, you want to have your Pokemon in play for a turn to potentially evolve up into the big Stage 2 Pokemon before your opponent gets a chance to set up those plays with the Jewel Seeker and get like a double knockout with the Wellspring Mask Torrential Pump. Now we do see the 1 rare candy is prized for Piper. That's not her only way to get a turn 2 Gardevoird, right? You can evolve into Curlia and then use Technical Machine Evolution to evolve up. But that does limit some of your plays, right? If you have like the secret box to be able to search things out, you won't have the option to just get rare candy Gardevoird now. So potentially a huge prize card there.
Does get 2 Ralts into play, so, this is one of the ways, you get double Curlia down, or you can protect one of the Ralts. The more Ralts, the better. The more, the merrier for sure. Does have the Scream Tail in the active spot as well. Could be useful to take care of some of those Hoot Hoots later on, but at a baseline here for Piper, without being able to play a supporter card, and with how this deck is built, can't really ask for much more than, just having some Ralts down, and that's all she's going to do this turn.
Yeah, we'll see what Caleb goes for on this one. First turn is always exciting for these kinds of decks. You get the Fan, Rotom, you get to search for 3 colorless Pokemon that have 100 HP or less. It's really just, a 1-card solution. Wait a second. Are both Wellspring Mask Ogerpon EX prized?
They are.
Oh no. That makes the game plan in this matchup a little tougher, I think.
Just a little bit.
Ooh.
Who knows? You know, your best attacker in this matchup, no biggie. Both of them are gone.
Okay. Well, Caleb overcame both bosses' orders being prized in the first game. We'll see what he figures out in this one. Yeah, obviously that's not ideal. Like you said, that is the main attacker in the early stages of this matchup. So you really have to recalculate after seeing this one. The fan Rotom will be the choice. This is always a great way to start off. You can only use this ability on your first turn, but it works so perfectly with the Hoot Hoot and the Noctowl. You can grab a couple of Hoot Hoot, you can get a Noctowl for the next turn since it has exactly 100 HP. Just a nice little package. And then we see the Ditto as well. Looks like a good start for Caleb, if only he had access to those Wellspring Mask Ogerpon.
Locked away for now. Plenty of other pieces. The Latios EX to allow free retreat, so no energy committed yet for the turn, and this will be the big tell here for Caleb. What does he want to potentially pivot into? It looks like it's going to be Terapagos EX. Now, that is a great Pokemon. It does have that little caveat on that Unified Beatdown attack. You cannot use it on your first turn if you are going second, but with how this rest of the hand looks, it may just have to be a pass over and really relying off that Jewel Seeker ability for the following turn.
Yeah, there's no energy, there's no supporter to play. That is not an ideal turn, especially given that there's no Wellspring. Oh, wow. Double Curlia, Professor's Research. Will we see the Technical Machine evolution to go with it?
Yeah, and at this point, with there not being a Wellspring Ogerpon in the active, maybe if you're Piper, you start asking some internal questions. Is my opponent just not value this? That seems pretty awkward. Why is there a Terapagos instead of a Wellspring Ogerpon? Piper could maybe make a couple of adjustments. Maybe use some of those Bravery Charms a little bit more aggressively if it doesn't feel like that's necessarily a threat. And Piper is just popping off right now, getting energy into the bin, finding the Badoo off of Nest Ball. That's going to limit Caleb's options to play any item cards next turn. And look at this. Look, no Technical Machine evolution, but you're still slowing your opponent down in the process. That 10 damage, always relevant. It's going to open up doors. And, you know, pending the circumstances, with those Wellspring Masks gone, Piper's going to feel relatively safe, and we could even see not one but two Gardevoird hit play next turn.
Yeah, this is the nightmare scenario if you're playing this Tera box deck. You don't want your opponent to get Gardevoird EX out before you've taken at least a couple prize cards. So you can see how much different the feeling is just on, you know, turn 2 of this game compared to the first game. You know, you kind of get this impending sense of doom playing against Gardevoird as they slowly start to establish their board. This is not a spot you want to be in. This is one where it just feels like you haven't lost quite yet, but it's starting to feel inevitable that things are not going your way.
So first Jewel Seeker of game 2 for Caleb. Is lacking energy. Crispin will fulfill that requirement, that need that is needed for Caleb in this spot. And then Ultra Ball, opening up options for more Jewel Seekers down the line. But you have to wonder, you know, like you said, if you're going to be dealing with a Miracle Force plus Dark Energy on Monkey next turn, that 10 damage relevant on the Terapagos, it could go down. This is a series so far where 10 damage is putting in a lot of work and mattering a lot. We're not even going to see anything else. Just Unified Beatdown, take the knockout. Dark Energy's already there, and the Arven will guarantee it. I think we're going to see the prophecy fulfilled in this second game.
Yeah, Ethan, I don't know how much longer this game is going to go on. I mean, this is just devastating. Your opponent is going to get the first 2 prize knockout with this Gardevoird EX, if Piper wants. I assume so. It's just Gardevoird EX has so much HP. It will be left with some damage, so we could see the Pikachu EX play once again. But, I mean, this is such an excellent setup from Piper in this game.
Yeah, and even if the Pikachu comes, Monkey Dory acts as a way to kind of break that Resolute Heart ability. So you give a lot of resources, and then all Piper has to do is just evolve into another Gardevoird, and you're kind of back in the same spot. Caleb does find that Pikachu, and you have to imagine, right, with the Wellspring Ogerpons being gone, it may not be, you know, the most exciting option. It may not be one that puts you in a commanding position, but it's the one you have to take in this spot. Because if you're not taking 2 prize cards back and fighting for this prize trade, you cannot outrun Gardevoird when it has just such a strong setup and once these Monkey Dory continuously become established on the board.
I wonder what kind of play Caleb wants to go for here. You can, I guess there's not really any energy sitting in play. You could get, like a really complicated play where you get like the Teal Mask, Ogre Pawn, and all this, and energy switch, and combo it with the Iono in the same turn to hand disrupt. But no, looks like Crispin is going to be the choice. Just Crispin plus the Sparkling Crystal can power up this Pikachu EX. So that means Piper's hand will not be disrupted at all. But yeah, I mean, if you're Caleb, you can really just, attack, try your best, hope that Piper somehow misses on another Gardevoird EX. Yeah, when you're behind, you just got to take some chances sometimes, and we'll see if it works out.
A-Spec committed for Caleb, that Sparkling Crystal, helping to fulfill that awkward attack cost on the Pikachu EX. It needs a kind of a weird rainbow assortment of energies. But with both Wellspring Mask still unavailable, with there being no better option, Caleb's going to do what he can. It's even awkward. He's going to go to 3 prize cards, so at minimum would still need another 2 turns most likely to win the game, and Piper's on that same 2-turn clock, but it's going to happen with this Pikachu X in the active spot, with Curlia already in play, with the Monkey Dory Dark Energy down, and it just feels like Caleb's fighting, but he's fighting for that very slim percentage of chance where Piper misses a beat with, an already sizable hand and a pretty solid board.
Yeah, Caleb does play the Briar, so that is a potential way to make up that prize gap. I don't know if it's going to be possible given how awkward the board is here. But just something to keep an eye on. Briar is a way you can kind of cheat out that 3rd prize card and win a game that otherwise really wouldn't be winnable. But yeah, Piper, as long as she can keep getting Gardevoird EX into play, get the 2nd Monkey Dory down with another Darkness Energy, feels like it's going to be tough for Caleb to overcome that, but nothing is guaranteed quite yet.
Yeah, and with a big combination, like you said, an option for Caleb, Value's just getting down this last Hoot in play as well, so that a maximum of 2 Jewel Seeker abilities can be used. But we see the Briar is also in the prize cards there. It feels like every time we cast a game in this city, the prize cards are horrendous.
Okay, well, Briar won't be an option. But, all right, this is a big one for Piper. Will there be any Gardevoird EX this turn? Didn't see one in the hand quite yet. Don't know if there's any left in the deck either.
There's a Nest Ball. Could potentially have grabbed the Pheasantipity just to allow Flip the Script to draw some more cards. But, Piper's a smart player. Very intelligent. Knows that Briar is something that she may have to play around in this spot. And there maybe even is a world, where you don't even have to KO this Pikachu EX necessarily, right? Hit it for 190 damage and leave some damage with the Adrenabrain, as that may be what needs to happen so the Piper can, ensure victory in this spot and not leave any gaps open.
Absolutely. But again, it does all start with getting a Gardevoird EX. Without that, you're not doing a whole lot. Piper is thinking about this counter catcher. Depends on whether or not you think you need to potentially stall for time. Maybe bring up a Noctowl and make things a little awkward for your opponent.
Yeah, the most awkward part is this is the only Gusting card in Piper's deck. Just plays the 1 counter catcher. So with that being the case, it may just be part of the fact that you're going to be researching this hand away. Could buy Iono. Big 7 cards does find Ultra Ball. So if there is a Gardevoird EX in the deck, that can guarantee to find it. There's also that Artisan, so limiting the bench here for Caleb is going to have a pretty easy choice here. Getting rid of those 3 Pokemon, no longer serving their purpose. And now the question for Piper, is the Gardevoird there? And also importantly, is there another Dark Energy available to allow this Gardevoird EX to not only attack, but do so without having any damage counters on it playing outside of that Pikachu EX's range?
Yeah, Piper is playing the 3rd Gardevoird EX. A lot of times we only see 2, but this 3rd one is in the deck. And the Earthen Vessel actually discarding the Pheasantipity EX, saying, I'm not giving you any easy knockouts. And yeah, the 2nd Adrenabrain will be online. This is a perfect turn for Piper. She's going to get out to a pretty big lead here, and Caleb's going to be left trying to figure out, what can I do from here?
Yeah, so big question is, is Piper going to just wait to take the knockout, and will exactly do that? Does not want to activate Flip the Script, putting damage onto this Pheasantipity, setting it up for a Roaring Scream on the following turn. and active action is on Caleb. And with these options unavailable, with the Briar and the prize cards, it feels like he's just kind of left scratching his head thinking, what can I do in this spot? Sob doesn't even necessarily work because of the way the prizes work, because of double monkey being set up. You can't really trade with this Gardevoird since any damage that you put on is just going to be flung back at the Pikachu, and Screamtail will just finish the job. So, Kyle, in this spot, what can you do to give yourself the best chance?
Yeah, I'm not sure, Ethan. This just doesn't look very good.
Is it cooked? Is it over?
It might be. We'll see what Caleb comes up with. I guess there's a way you can, try to go after a Monkey Dory. If you could set up like a Wellspring Mask Ogre Pond play or something. That doesn't work either, right? It just gets knocked out. Yeah, I'm not sure what Caleb's plan is here. One of the only Pokemon that could potentially withstand a hit at this point is like Blood Moon Ursaluna EX. Sure. Just has so much HP. But then you have the Screamtail to deal with. I mean, it's not looking great. This is an interesting spot where, if your opponent was just playing kind of like random stuff, like for example, if your opponent happened to play a Gravity Mountain, which we saw earlier in the day,
sure,
you could just lose out of nowhere. But yeah. Piper just saying, I don't think Caleb is playing this kind of card, and leaving that Pikachu with 190 damage on it. But we do see a Judge here, potentially going for some hand disruption. Not sure what Caleb is looking for or trying to disrupt, though.
Yeah, it seems, game is essentially on board at this point, right? There's enough psychic energy in the discard pile. Any damage on the Gardevoird will just finish off the Pikachu, and, maybe some sort of way to... You can't play Turo now. You've already committed your supporter for turn, so can't heal any of that off. There's an Ultra Ball for a Noctowl piece, but kind of feels like, we're running in circles, and it feels like just kind of calmly avoiding the inevitable almost that will be happening. It looks like just wants to extend the bench a bit, putting that Area 0 and the Nest Ball to the front. We'll see what Caleb has in store. He's a good player. He's played in these spots before. He's going to do what he can to give himself a percentage, even if it's not that great, to win this game.
Yeah, Area 0 will extend the bench to 8 once again. Nest Ball from UEX and going for a restart, so there must be something really specific Caleb is digging for at this point. Guess we'll find out what it is. I'm going to guess that's not it. One more shot.
And looking through the discard pile, seeing is there anything here that makes sense? Ultra Ball. Could grab another Noctowl. We could go fishing again, see 2 more trainers out of the deck. But again, just Caleb kind of just running in circles at this point. Not much he can do, and the inevitable is almost here.
Yeah. Caleb identifies this one. It's not happening. Let's go to game 3.
So 2 completely polar different games. Piper really struggling early on in game 1. Game 2, Caleb just not able to get anything going thanks to a certain Pokemon hiding out in the prizes. Once Gardevoird was established, once the Monkey Dories came down, it was all that for her. Piper Lapine tying things up 1-1. This is it, Kyle. Decisive game 3 to see who will be advancing into our top 4.
Yeah, you can see how nerve-wracking that game was from Piper's side still. Even with a really, really good start, got to go first, really got out to a couple Gardevoird really quickly. Caleb still had ways to kind of do some crafty stuff and figure out ways to win. Piper had to keep drawing cards, keep drawing the Gardevoird, the energy for the Monkey Dory. So you can see how much pressure is going to be put on the Gardevoird deck. And now Caleb can choose to go first in this 3rd game and threaten that Wellspring Mask, in theory, if they're not both prized again.
We'll keep our mouths shut. It feels like it. Game 3s in this building have had some history. As we see a little bit of live updates, of course, 3 other top 8 matches going on. We already explained, of course, Christian Funanon, our first player in the top 4, and then our 2 other matches, Michael Davidson up 1-0 up against Taylor Whalen, so that's Gardevoird up against the Edie Box, and Joseph Mused down a game up against Henry Chow in a close game number 2. But we are in this game number 3, Kyle. Let's get into it. Down back to the table. Caleb will start things off. I don't know if there's any way to find a fan Rotom. Oh no, that is a huge missing piece for Caleb. An essential part of this Tera Box deck is getting Fan Call, getting those Hoot Hoots into play. And now Piper has a couple of options. Could even go for the Evo, or something like the Itchy Pollen just has such a higher impact when your opponent has not put those Pokemon on the bench yet.
Yeah, sound the alarm, but not for Game 3 for Caleb's start here. Now, it does start with the Wellspring Mask, Ogerpon, and has an energy attachment, so it's not like this is the worst thing that could have happened. It's still threatening a turn 2 attack, but yeah, not getting the Fan Rotom on the first turn, it's brutal. You know, there's no Nest Ball, no Ultra Ball in your opening hand. That's tough. And without that, you know, that's your engine, right? That's your way to get a bunch of Hoot down and set yourself up for big plays on the second turn. So, got to be really deflating. But again, did get an energy attachment, did start with a good Pokemon. So, not all hope is lost. Piper, though, buddy Poffin, getting 2 Ralts right away. That's a good start.
Solid prizes. You saw them up on the screen. Nothing too crazy. Couple of energy. Always annoying. We saw her have a little bit of trouble getting energy into the bin on the first turn of the game. So now the question is, you know, what else does Piper have to follow things up? Shuffling the deck means there's most likely not something like an Arven or Technical Machine Evolution already in the hand. So potentially having to rely off some other cards. And there's actually nothing else. We're going to just see the things pass back. And we're just dumping the entire hand here. Professor's research not even wanting to use Crispin in this case to take a guaranteed 2 prizes, because that would leave Caleb with just 1 Pokemon in play and could potentially cost him the game. Wants to just play super safe. What is happening here in this third game, Kyle?
I have no idea. I mean, I guess I kind of get it, but your opponent didn't play a supporter card. Your opponent didn't have any energy. You got to think if you're just putting on some pressure here, there's a decent chance your opponent just doesn't have anything. But Caleb deciding, you know what, I'm going to prioritize getting a full setup here. I can't play the game without Hoot in play, without access to the Jewel Seeker. So yeah, just got to research away a really costly hand too, right? There's a Crispin in there. There's lots of resources that go to the discard pile. This could be a play that comes back later on, and we look at it and we see, oh, all those resources went away on the second turn of the game.
Yeah, there's always that fear. You know, you haven't searched the deck yet. If you commit to playing a Crispin and that 1 of water energy is prized, then all of a sudden you're in a real world of hurt. But just have to, you know, prioritize finding different pieces. We'll see the Earthen Vessel. Nest Ball will finally get what I hope to be probably a Hoot. Is even just considering the Mew EX to the front. Is this going to be a no Owl Game 3 here, Kyle?
No, there's no way. You got to get a Hoot, right? There might be one in the hand already.
All right, well, it's going to be the Teal Mask Ogerpon instead. There is one in the hand, 2 in the hand, actually. So our Owl problem is contained for now. The rest of the question will be, you know, how does Caleb want to play the rest of the turn? Teal Mask, you know, can use that Teal dance to start drawing a little bit of cards, putting the energy in play. You know, there is not a Crispin available, but, you know, if Caleb finds the right 1 card here, if he can Teal dance into an energy switch, has not attached yet for the turn, we could see the unexpected turn to Torrential Pump with no Noctowls being used and no Crispin. This is what dreams are made of, Kyle. They're not made of that, though.
Well, we do have energy switch potentially as well, right? You can move the energy.
Well, is there an energy switch in the hands?
No, but that was another option, right?
There is an Ultra Ball, so, you know, if Caleb wanted to, he could grab Mew and try and go fishing a little bit more aggressively, but it's just going to be the Sob. Action back over to Piper. Has the 1 of rare Candy Gardevoird. Are you kidding me?
But no energy, no supporter. So as good as a turn 2 Gardevoird is, it's not doing anything until you get energy in the discard pile. This is just sitting there. I mean, this is devastating, right? Because you're not doing anything this turn. Even if, let's say, you draw like a Professor's Research next turn, I mean, you still don't have energy in the discard pile. Your hand would have to be so good off of that draw, right? You need to find like a bunch of Earthen Vessels, Secret Box, stuff like that. This is such a slow situation for Piper, and now Caleb has set up with, you know, access to the Noctowl, Jewel Seeker, can go for some big plays here. This is really scary if you're Piper.
Nest Ball and the Sparkling Crystal. Sparkling Crystal just makes this Torrential Pump so efficient in terms of attacking. Now just the 2 energy instead of the 3 that need to be shuffled back into the deck. Using the restart does find the energy switch. There's not a lot else going on, and we are going super turbo here. Torrential Pump, 2 prizes taken. Does top deck the Arven and does have an Ultra Ball in hand. So a couple of that, actually, it seems. So with Pheasantipity as a potential option now that prizes have been taken, what was a slow start for Piper, things could change pretty quickly if she can find the right cards off these draws.
Yeah, this is a really challenging decision. You can just play the Arven, and you know your options might be a lot more limited than if you go for something like a really risky play like Ultra Ball just for Pheasantipity EX, hope to draw like Professor's Research. Getting the Arven does allow you to get the secret box, which will unlock some more options here, but will it be enough? How much energy can Piper realistically get into the discard pile here? He can secret box, you know, get the Earthen Vessel off of that potentially. Then you can Ultra Ball away the energy you get, then get a Pheasantipity EX and just kind of keep trying to cycle through things until you find the right thing. But this is going to be really challenging.
Does get a guaranteed supporter at minimum for the next turn, as well as Earthen Vessel and Artisan. So at minimum, you know, you may not be knocking out this Wellspring Mask Ogerpon, but if you do want to, you could use another Screen Tail. Piper does play 2 and just knock out one of the Hoot Hoots on the bench. That way you shut off a Jewel Seeker ability, and with there already being a Crispin in the bin, and with there already being no other Jewel Seeker abilities to possibly be used, it is a potential option. It looks like maybe just, again, foregoing putting this Pheasantipity into play, grabbing the Monkey Dory instead, and trying to figure out what the next option is.
You saw Piper pause there for a second. Not sure if this was the right thing to do. A really challenging hole to dig out of in this situation. Does decide to go for the Monkey Dory. And I think, Ethan, we're going back to our friend, the Mind Bend. Maybe confusion coming up once again. And what a risky move it is, right? There's now 2 more targets for the Torrential Pump. Could knock out the Monkey Dory and the Ralt and go down to 2 prize cards for Caleb. Piper in a precarious position here. What can Caleb do to take advantage?
Caleb, with so many options at his disposal, still has access to a Jewel Seeker ability. Now 2 energy on that Teal Mask Ogerpon means we could even dance around a little bit. Retreat, switch some of those energies to a new Pokemon. There was the Terapagos already in the discard pile. So Caleb, with the master of this deck, is going to just see every opportunity he has, plenty of searching cards, and figure out what he wants this next attacker to use. Is there the potential here, Kyle, for him to bench a new bench a new Wellspring Mask Ogerpon and power that Pokemon up? It does have a very convenient 2 colorless and 1 water energy requirement, so if there's a couple energy switch, may not even need the Crispin to make that happen.
I think Caleb is trying to do some math and figure out how many cards do I have to work with. He's got a couple Ultra Balls. He needs to find both, you know, you need the Latias EX to give the free retreat. That's the really tricky part of this puzzle. You can get another Wellspring Mask Ogerpon down, but then you need a way to retreat the active one, and then you need to Crispin, energy switch. It's a lot of stuff to need, and to pull all that off, you would also need the Area 0 Underdepths to expand your bench by a slot, so you can bench the Latias EX as well. So this is a really challenging puzzle. Caleb's a really skilled player. We'll see if he can figure it out. It feels like you have the options in front of you, but can you figure out the best way to do it?
I think he's found a way to guarantee it. He's got Energy Switch already in hand, and the last card is Ultra Ball. So with this Mew restart, it will give him exactly enough cards to discard for this Latias EX. It's going to cost a lot of resources, but at the cost of giving Caleb just a 2-prize victory away from him advancing into the top 4. He's going to just go all into this play, it seems, Kyle. Everything being played down. Restart for 2. What are the 2 cards you discard? I think those are acceptable ones, all things considered. It would be really bad if that was, you know, 2 Night Stretcher or 2 Super Rod. He's going to play this Ultra Ball, play down to just 0 cards in hand, and invest all in on establishing this second Torrential Pump. Caleb Rogerson can smell it. He is just 2 prize cards away from winning and advancing to another top 4.
You can see just an expertly played turn from Caleb, using every single card in his hand, precise resource management, to be able to play out his entire hand and pull off another devastating Torrential Pump. Piper is on the back foot here, down 4 prize cards, not out of it quite yet. But Ethan, how are you going to crawl out of this one, especially because you had to play Professor's Research here? I guess Iono wouldn't have been any better because your opponent doesn't have any cards besides those prize cards. Oh, this is going to be a really tough one. What attacker do you even go for here? Is it something like a Screamtail, a single prize Pokemon?
Are we going back in with another Monkey Dory?
Not again.
Yeah, this Monkey Dory has been putting in too much work. Its arms are getting weak at this point. I think Viper may have to potentially bench something like Pheasantipity EX and rely off Flip the Script. Without any dark energy on these Monkey Dory, it seems that Caleb is just able to put plays together when the damage sticks on Piper's side, right? When you use these Psychic Embrace abilities and you're unable to heal that damage off, it puts things like the Monkey Dory in play. It puts other Pokemon in play. We're actually going to see this Gardevoird EX go up to 8 damage counters on it and potentially thinking about swinging into this, but this is really risky, Kyle, because it means that a full bench unified beatdown would actually be just enough damage to knock out Gardevoird EX. It's going to be pretty difficult for Caleb to find, though, all things considered. The stadium just got removed. He's got no Jewel Seekers at his ability. May have to just kind of take a little bit of an off turn to build up what's possible, but he's actually just going to start off dumping the entire hand and just playing the Ultra Ball.
Yeah, Caleb's not in that great of a spot, right? His bench is locked. The Area 0 Underdepths is gone. He does not have a good attacker powered up right here. Is fully dependent on this Mew EX to restart for 3 cards. If you don't find anything good here, this could be a wasted turn. And those cards, Ethan, are horrible. There's one more shot with the Teal Dance, and it's another energy.
What do you do with this energy? Could just go ahead and commit it onto something like the benched Ogerpon, potentially. Or even the active, if you really think about it, you can sob this Gardevoird, and with there being no dark energy down on the bench Monkey Dory, it's going to kind of be in a pretty realistic range for even something like Myriad Leaf Shower to follow it up with a knockout. So, you know, maybe that's what Caleb is considering, and I'm sure a question in the back of his mind is that how likely will Piper be playing a Professor Turo next turn? And if that's the case of no, can I just kind of set up for this Gardevoird to be in range for these final 2 prizes?
Such a tricky end to this game. Caleb with a massive lead in prize cards, but it doesn't take much for this Gardevoird EX deck to close the gap. And we do see the sob, but there's the darkness energy on the Monkey Dory. Oh, geez. All right, now big questions. You know, do you just Adrenabrain, move some damage to the active and take 2 prize cards and try to chip away at prize cards here? Do you try to go after something like the Teal Mask Ogerpon that's got energy on it, or even potentially go after like the Mew EX? Does Piper even have access to Counter Catcher to target down a different Pokemon? Again, Sob prevents Gardevoird EX from retreating, so you can't go into something like a Screamtail. This 2 prize Pokemon is just stuck in the active spot. Really tricky game here. We'll see what happens, and I think you don't want to take too many prize cards too, because then something like Blood Moon Ursaluna could come out and close out the game. So what is Piper going to do?
It's such a tough spot. It's now in perfect range of that Blood Moon Ursaluna. You put the damage onto this Teal Mask Ogerpon, but if there's enough energy between here, you need 7 energy total. If there's 7 energy total between both active Pokemon, the Teal Mask and this Gardevoird EX, that will actually be enough to take this knockout. It's 210
Crispin
plus the 30. Crispin, does there have enough grass energy in the deck? Is that a potential option? Just past the turnover, we're going to see the Crispin. Caleb checking through the deck. If there's 2 energies, this game is over. Teal Dance, attachment for turn, and Myriad Leaf Shower closes out the game. Caleb Rogerson advances into our top 4 here in Portland.
This really is a toolbox deck here, attacking with pretty much everything. The Teal Mask Ogerpon EX gets in for the last attack. Wow, what a match there. Got a feel for Piper just falling behind there way too far in the 3rd game. Had a valiant comeback attempt, but at the end of the day, Caleb was able to figure out a way to close out this match and advance to the top 4.
That was a lot to take in, Kyle. Back and forth set as we